Well, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this. For me, it is 15:20, 3:20 p.m. Saturday, January 16th, 2021. Here in, let's check outside. Overcast, but not raining, Seattle. So it's a nice chase and pace for those of us in Seattle who sort of endured 2 straight weeks of heavy rain, which is not normal, and then 40 to 50-mile-an-hour windstorms, which knocked out power from about 350,000 people, including myself. But happy to have electricity back and be here with you so we can do another xunit.net stream. 3-day weekend. Some people, myself included, have this Monday off from work for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So I will probably bonus stream again this weekend. I don't know if it's going to be Sunday or Monday. Not sure. I'll probably also stream a bit. I've been playing Death Stranding, as you know, but also the new season of Path of Exile just started up. New league, I should say. They don't call them seasons; they call them leagues. I played well into the early hours yesterday, which is why I'm having a late start today. So I might do that. Might stream one or the other or both of those this weekend. So, if you're interested in more than code, I'll be here for that. You may also notice that we got some background music going on. I'm trying out I think it's called Twitch Broadcast, which is their DMCA free streaming stuff. So if you're watching this on the VOD, you won't hear music, shouldn't hear music if it's all been configured correctly. This is my first time using it. But for those of you here on the live stream, you should be hearing the background music. Let me know how it works out. Too loud, too quiet. Just found myself having a lot of pauses. I thought a little background music would be nice. So I went with some lo-fi stuff for today. Why don't we jump in? The first thing we're going to do today is we're going to do a little review. It's been a while since we've done issues and whatnot. So let's go ahead and get ourselves in there. I think what I want to do for this is I don't think there's anything here that hasn't been answered. I'm going to take a quick peek through some of these top ones. I did mention that I was going to start closing some of these. So maybe I'll do that today. I'll go through and quickly sort of close all these things that have been hanging around. I feel like answered, but I don't think people are necessarily motivated or even know that they should come and close the discussions in the same way that you should close an issue when you're done with it. And since I go through and clean up issues, why not go through and clean up discussions as well, right? So this one, I think I'm gonna just close. I believe my final feeling on this is that this is somebody who wants us to have a flag to be able to stop on first chance exceptions. I'm gonna go read through here. I'm going to go read through here and see if I've missed anything. There was one more reply about a week ago to see if there's any APIs to be opened. But in general, this is not necessarily a feature I'm interested in. But if it's something you're interested in, feel free to stop by this this discussion issue, stopping on exceptions, what should really say first chance exceptions. And for those of you who don't know what a first chance exception is, exceptions, generally speaking, particularly in .NET, but I think most languages have this concept of an exception is a first chance exception. That's when it's thrown. That's regardless of whether or not somebody's eventually going to catch the exception. So that's kind of the idea behind first chance. Second chance exceptions are those which were thrown but were never caught. So this is specifically asking for the ability to stop on all first chance exceptions, which I honestly believe is a feature that that Tapika or Tapika, I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't think they would be as happy with this feature as they think they would be, because there are several cases where first chance exceptions are thrown inside of XUnit itself. But this is what they think they want. So anyway, if this is something interesting to you, stop by and contribute to this. Thinking about remote testing. So this is Raphael. Raphael is interested in having remote testing work for V3. And the idea that he would like to have here is that he would like to be able to use Visual Studio on his Windows machine and then build a Linux or a Mac OS binary and have it deployed to a remote machine and then have the tests run there. So we had quite a lot of discussion about this. Um, so there's a fairly substantial thread here. Um, where I think where I land on this is that this is an interesting idea from a feature perspective, but I believe it belongs to the VS Test team. And VS Test is the project that is responsible for integration of testing frameworks inside Visual Studio. So when you see XUnit tests or NUnit tests or even MS Test tests show up in Test Explorer, it's VS Test that does that. VS Test owns that Test Explorer experience. And what I like in this too is that the feature that existed back in the day with Windows Phone, uh, where you could write tests for Windows Phone and then run the tests on the device or on a device emulator, and Visual Studio was responsible for basically making all that work. All we had to do was provide the plugin that supported VS Test. And I think that if remote testing is going to be something that ends up as a feature inside of Visual Studio, that it's probably the VS Test teams. I think they would own that, right? I think that they would be the ones responsible for making that happen. So that's kind of where I landed on this. But when we get to the TCP runner stuff today, you'll see that there actually is a mechanism that could be made to do this. And I don't know if there will be any interest in any third party support for this. So, but we'll talk about that today when we get to the TCP runner stuff. Perform an action only when a test case fails. Yeah, okay. So this got answered already. Okay, so that's it for discussions for today. Looks like we've got one new uncategorized issue. I think this was opened because I asked somebody to open it. So today, the timeout feature, which was in V1 and then taken away in V2 and then sort of re-added in an experimental sort of quasi works and doesn't work way in 2.3 or 2.4 added back. Turns out the implementation we use doesn't work if you're not an async test. It depends on tasks. So this issue is really sort of open for tasks. So I think what this needs to be is this is a core framework. This is a feature or a bug, sorry. So I'm going to label it as such, core framework bug. I'm also going to go bring this over into our bug list if I didn't already. Because I don't remember if I did this. Oh yeah, so I already did this. I added this to the list for 3.0. Okay, let's cancel all that. I bet if I had scrolled, I would have seen that I had already done that. I did. So this came over from a discussion post, I think. All right, so that's it for discussions and issues, right? That now got labeled as such. I need to come through here and maybe do another closing swath on issues as well. So let me do a closing pass on discussions and issues. Just to keep those things like it's a tidiness thing, right? Make sure everything stays in order. Okay. PRs. We definitely have a PR today to look at. There should be a PR on the assert side. Updated code to remove dependency on event args, and there should be Yeah, unit test for event asserts. So this is just broken at the moment because it depends on this other thing, which hasn't been merged yet, is my assumption. So let's go take a look at this. For a little bit of background, because XUnit v1 and was based on .NET 2.0, .NET Framework 2.0, all of our event asserts require that your event data derives from event args. This is one, like, if you made me pick 3 or 4 things that I think were just really bad ideas in .NET Framework, the event args class was one of those bad ideas. There's absolutely no reason that event args had to be derived from event args. There's no reason it could have just been object. Um, or if you wanted to declare that some behavior was required, then do that as an interface. But as it turns out, there was none of that. Event args was basically an empty class. Um, and in .NET 4.5, they took away the dependency on event args. I actually went and sort of looked it up. Somebody had opened a discussion on this, which I'm going to guess was maybe correlated here in this other PR. So yeah, he doesn't mention it here, but there was a discussion about why do we require event args, and the answer is honestly just historical reasons. So this should be pretty easy, right? You should just be removing the where t event args from everything. Raised event args arguments not equal to null. So apparently we weren't all that concerned before about whether or not there was any data. So of course we've got nullability concerns here now, right? So yeah. Although I'm not 100% sure I agree with this. Because what this test is trying to do is to say, I guess it raised an event already. We know that it raised the event. So maybe this is okay. I would have thought the opposite here would be more appropriate. Like if the arguments were null or they're the wrong type, we should throw this. But I guess null arguments should be illegal, right? So if they're null, then they're of the right type, theoretically, if the thing you have is nullable. It'll be interesting to see if how this compiles, right? So let's do this. This is Addison 88 assert fix. Let's come over here into, actually, yeah, here. Let's go source XUnit 83 assert, assertion asserts. Let me fetch. Let me get remote add this. Let me just copy that. Get remote add PR43 as this. Get fetch PR43. Get reset hard PR43 assert fix. So this is just gonna dump us into this other place, which we should now be able to check this. This is an event asserts, and sure enough, we see the where t's are gone now from everywhere because every one of these had a where t events. And then here's our nullable check. So I'm kind of curious, just to make sure that this builds over here. What's interesting about having the assertion library be its own Git submodule is that we don't have any kind of a PR build gesture right now for those. So I don't really know whether they build unless I bring the code into the XUnit project itself and build it. And so my assumption is that if I take this away, this change, that the build fails because of a dereference of a possible null type, which is fine. Because previously when we had where t is event args, right? It mandated event args, which, as I mentioned, is an empty class. But by mandating event args, it basically meant we couldn't have a nullable version of event args here, and therefore that nullability requirement wasn't necessary here. So when we take the where away, we need the nullability check again. Okay, so this all looks good. The build succeeds. I'm going to assume that the tests are going to be fine. I mean, this code is fine. So let me go back to origin main, which will put me back on 7E for the moment. I'm going to go over here and merge this because this is just remove the where, add nullable checks, remove the where, remove the where, remove the where. Okay, that all looks good. So let's go ahead and merge this. Thanks. We will comment and then we will do the merge. I don't know why it has this co-authored by. It's weird. Um, there is just this one. Yeah, there is just this one commit. I don't know why it has that co-authored by. It's fine. Okay. So that gets merged into main. And so now let's come back over here. Let's go ahead and remove the PR43 remote. Let's fetch again. Let's reset again. So now that'll put us on 5A with our fix. All right, so we should now see that our fix is here. Very good. Oh yeah, I'm in the wrong branch. Actually, what is the state of my branches right now? So dev and main are okay. Let me get out of TCP Runner. Let me switch to main. And then let's do this again. Oh, I'm already halfway there. And then we'll do the reset again here to pull 5A. Yeah, so that put me too far down. Okay. So that's just the commit. So let me then, if I pull his or hers, I'm sorry, I don't mean to make assumptions. If I pull Addison's branch over here, do I have push? Okay, so I have push rights. So let me go ahead and put this in the PR then. So git remote add PR, what are you, 2223, 2223 as that. So let's fetch PR 2223. Let me stash this change. Let me, okay, well, that's interesting. Yeah, stash that change, that's fine. We'll go back. Let's switch to this branch and it tracked it automatically. Good. Let's go there. Let's do the reset. Pull in 5A. Let's come back down here. Let's take a quick look at these tests. Event, assert, tests. First, let's take a look at the PR here. I'm going to imagine that object can't, okay, these are just compiler errors because of doesn't have the newest code. So let's see, what did he do? So we've got raises object, 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 derived object, derived object, 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 generic object, generic object, object, object. So basically he went through and we just had a bunch of stuff using event args and things that derived from event args, and now he's just using object and things that derive from event object. So my assumption now, since I have pulled in the new assert libraries, that all of his tests should pass. Sorry, did it again. All of their tests should pass. V3 assert tests, let's go ahead and run them. Unknown command line. Oh yeah, that's my bad. Let's take that stuff away. I'll explain what that is in just a moment. Yeah, so all those tests now pass. So this looks good. So what I'll do then is I will pull in latest assert library. Oh, all right. And then I should be able to push this. All right, GPG, wake up. There you go. So if I push that, we should see our action rerunning over here. Let's get it back up to the top and go here. And yep, so I went to Addison X unit. So there's that. Let's see if our checks are running. So our checks are running again. Good. Let's go scope in on the Ubuntu one. I'm going to grab something to drink while that's happening. Oh man. Apparently I have a drinking problem. Can't breathe. Oh yeah, this is I tweeted about this. This is the new might be difficult with the green screen. The new Major Melon Mountain Dew Zero Sugar, which is a watermelon infused Mountain Dew flavor. Not an ad. Um, it's interesting. I got a 12 pack. It probably will not be a rebuy. I was feeling definitively regressive when I went grocery shopping. And the other thing I mentioned the other day in Twitter is that I bought cheesy hot dogs and macaroni and cheese so that I could have cheesy hot dogs and macaroni and cheese for lunch. So yeah, I definitely shopped like a 9-year-old. I mean, that's all there is to it. And I would apologize, except I'm not gonna. So there you go. Well, it's just not nearly as fast as my home computer. Hard to believe that the free action runners aren't, like a 12 thread, 64 gig of RAM PC, right? What's up with that? All right. Phone's yelling at me. What's going on, phone? Mm. Missed call, potential spam. Wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob. Well, we got through the build. That's always a good thing. And then the cert tests ran. So don't have any reason to expect this isn't going to finish. So we'll go back to the PR here in a minute. Once all of its checks have passed, we'll go ahead and merge that. I believe that's the only PR I was interested in today. This assert distinct is one that I have been sort of backburnering for a while. And then the rest of these, I class fixture capturing output and extensibility classes list. What what is this? Oh, this is for the website. Oh, right. Um, so this iClass fixture of T, like saying that you can, wait a minute, fixes 2218 alphabetically, update docs capturing output to list iClass fixture. Yeah, so this is fine. There's actually iCollection. This also works for iCollection fixture, and since I have push rights here, we're gonna go ahead and fix that as well. Oh, we got a red light over here. What happened over here? Red light. Socket is not connected. Yeah. All right. Well, that's interesting. We got a same problem with the Mac. I'm not gonna punish this PR for this. It is interesting though that this appears to be failing on the Unix likes, but not on Windows. This is new stuff, so wow, this thing is way behind. Oh no, it's not. It's on 32-bit now. Okay, good. Um, so it got through 64-bit. It got through .NET Core and 64-bit. Where did these fail? Whoops, the Ubuntu's and the Mac OSs. I might have to go back and see what's going on with these tests. So this is V3 Runner common on mono. So they both fail on the same thing. Buffer TCP client test, message sent by server is received by client. Message sent by client is received by server. Message sent by client is received by server. Message sent by server is received by client. So that's actually not the same thing, but it is kind of. And failing on the Unix likes. All right. Well, I'm going to take a note for that. Might be worth us fixing that today. But I think if I get a pass on Windows, which it certainly looks like I'm going to, then I probably don't care because it's unrelated. So, but it is related to the other stuff I'm doing. All right. That said, I was going to come take a look at this. So let me grab this link. This is a 2224. This actually goes into the website. Move analyzer docs. That's interesting. I don't remember where I am here. The only branch I care about is GH pages. That will help. And then the remote, I care about GH pages and maybe move analyzer docs. Is this something I was in the middle of? I apparently did not finish this. Okay, so I need to go back to GH pages, but that's okay because I'm going to do a remote add ER2224. Is that what I said it was? Yep, 2224 for this. Let's fetch that remote and let's switch to add iClass fixture. And then actually, I'm not going to do that here. I want to, because I don't have the infrastructure set up correctly. That's a terrible fortune. You know have Asian flu. Let's simplify this prompt. There we go. Let's go to the web over here. Let's add this here. Let's fetch this here. The reason I do this on the Linux side is because it requires GitHub Pages, which requires Ruby and a bunch of other stuff. The kid OG. Hey, what are you working on? At the moment, I'm working on PRs, and I've already gone through discussions and issues. I'm working on PRs. I got one in the background baking, and then this one, which is a PR for the website that I'm going to do a couple of changes on real quick. And then I'm going to start working on the TCP Runner stuff again, which I've been working on in the background. Let's go to IDI class fixture. Let's open this up in VS Code, which ended up on the wrong window. Come on over here, VS Code. Let's do, I don't know when the last time was that I did this, so let's do bundle update. Is it update or upgrade? I forget. Can I lower the music? Too loud. Okay, good. Thank you for the feedback. Let's do that. Let me know if that's better. Although a new song just started, so give it a sec. Um, so yeah, here's some new stuff here. I want to pull that in. I guess I don't want to do it right now though, right? Bundle install. So I have everything installed. Okay, good. Bundle exec, serve. Let's see, Jekyll, serve W. Okay, good. Yeah, it's hard to tell because I'm just hearing the music. I can't hear myself. And like when I look at the meters, like it looks like I should be now roughly 4 times louder than the music. So that's probably better than it was before. Um, Over to VS Code. So the change that was made here was, um, let's see, was to docs capturing output for class fixture. The other thing I want to put in there is collection fixture. So let's opening capturing output, find I class fixture. We're going to also put in here code collection fixture, GT, right? And then I should be able to pop up localhost 4000 and go to docs capturing output, extensibility classes, iClass fixture, iCollection fixture. Okay, looks good. Let's go ahead and put that in there as well. What was the message that was left here? Add this to the list. Let's go ahead and also say then, let's do add I collection fixture to the list as well. I'll push that up into the branch. And then there are obviously no actions checks here for this. It just sort of depends on me doing this. Collection fixture. We don't need the co-authoring. We don't need multiple messages. Let's just go ahead and squash this. And then we'll say thanks. And then that will go live here in just a moment. If you go to the home page for your project, on the right-hand side here, there should be a little thing about GitHub pages pending, right? So they're pending doing the deployment of what I just did there. This will change. This will change depending on when it's deployed. Where am I from? At the moment, I'm sitting in Redmond, Washington, which is Seattle adjacent. But I'm originally from Michigan, also in the United States. So if I sound very Midwestern, that would be why. Let's see. How about you? Where are you from, the kid? All right. This passed. So I'm good enough to merge this. Not concerned with the checks that failed on Linux, Mac. I'm going to look into those shortly. Separately. Is there other? Let's have a PR. We'll go ahead and do that. And we'll do a squash and merge anyway. Don't need this co-author or anything. Okay, very good. From Germany. Okay. Yes, I'm definitely American. I'm definitely not British. Yeah, if British people talk like me, then I wouldn't be able to tell British people from American people. We definitely have a different accent. I know a few people who live in Germany, a few people who used to live in Germany. I've never been, though. Been to Europe several times, but Germany is on my list of places to visit that I have not yet. All right, let's see what's going on here. Still pending. Apparently, there must be some kind of queue. Well, okay, there's some kind of queue. Life goes up. Don't miss much. You know, everybody thinks that about the places they live. I've never really been much for being a tourist in the places where I live. Um, just because I wait to be a tourist when other people come to visit. And for the most part, I will discover the things that are interesting about my place that I live with people who come to visit. So, all right. So we're done with issues. We're done with PRs. So back onto our roadmap. Let's do a quick. Let's do some quick fixes here on the command prompt. Yeah, I mean, one of the nice things about living in Europe is like traveling to to different companies, to different countries in Europe is a lot like for us traveling to different states. When I lived in Michigan, um, depending on like most people who live in Europe, I think don't have a good sense of um, how big the United States is until you actually come visit. So it can be a little intimidating to realize, like where I lived in Michigan, I like I could drive from one end of Michigan to the other. I could be in the car for like 10 or 11 hours and still be in Michigan. All right, that's a pretty big state. Some of that is just because of all the water. Is XUnit your framework? Yeah, it is. Started by Jim Newkirk and I. Jim doesn't really work on it anymore, so it's basically just me. All right. Let's bring our main change into dev. We need to pull, we need to fetch main. We need to fetch. Let's get rid of our remotes too. Git, I think just remote. Git remote, remove PR 2223. One of our branches, let's delete this cert event args fix branch. We did a fetch already, so let's do an FF only on origin main to get that new fix. And then we need to do a submodule update. Yep, okay, good. Uh, yeah, so XUnit.net is it's a unit testing framework for .NET Framework and .NET Core. It's been around since 2007, officially, is when we shipped the first version. So very long-lived open source project. We are on GitHub at github.com xunit. The core project is in the XUnit repository, and then there's a couple others that are regularly updated, but there's maybe a dozen projects here. So some of which are retired. That our GitHub pages get deployed? Still not. All right, well, there must be some kind of backlog. Let's see. So dev should now be caught up. Let's go look at here, right? Dev is now caught up to main. Let's get our v3 TCP runner moved over onto main. Let's do a rebase on top of dev. That should be a no-brainer. We'll push that up. Not familiar with .NET, yeah. I've been using C# a long time. .NET is, I don't know, 20 years old. So All right. Thanks for hanging out, the kid. Maybe see you next time. Okay. So we are going to be working on the TCP Runner stuff, just to sort of give you an idea of where I am with that. So I had this buffered TCP client that we just saw some test fail for, which, maybe we should fix those tests on the Unix likes and see if I can figure out what's going on there. Um, but I have a new set of engine classes that are used on the runner side and the execution side. So if I look in runner common, actually, where did these land? Where did these engine classes land? TCP. So the execution engine is in runner in proc console. The runner engine is in runner common. So we'll start with the runner engine. So the runner engine, they both use buffer TCP client, which is our line-oriented client for doing, the TCP connection. So the runner engine is the side that's used by the runner. So the commands that are available on the runner side are going to be things like, well, we have send quit and send cancel, but we'll also have things like send find and send run, because those are sort of the messages we have. And actually, if we go look at the engine messages class, uh, on the execution side, really the only message that we have that comes from execution is response messages. But on the runner side, we have cancel, find, quit, and run. So I already have send, quit, and send, run, but I don't have send, find, or send, quit, and cancel, but I don't have find and run yet. But the way this works is this is going to send these messages actually are document how this works. So for example, if I say find, I want to find the tests. The data that is sent along with find is the operation ID followed by an optional specification of the tests to find. That was a typo. If there's no specification, finds all tests. We don't actually have the specification stuff done at the moment yet, but I do have find with an operation ID. So let me show you how this works. I took David Fowler's TCP Echo server um, and modified it to be able to send text commands. Read from the console and send text commands. And then also when the remote side closes a connection, I just shut the server down. So this is going to listen on port 8087. Let's go ahead and build. And then I'll pop up the other terminal window, and now you can see why I have the two terminal windows sized the way they are. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to run source xunit v3 assert tests in debug net472. Right, if I just run that, it'll run those tests. I'll do internal diagnostics. That would give us more information if there was more information to see. There's not in this case. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say TCP 8087. So this Echo server over here is basically simulating the runner side. So like if you were to run XUnit v3 console for a v3 project, what it would do is the equivalent of what this thing is doing, except it would have the engine running on the other side. So the execution engine is what's being used here. So if we go look at the TCP execution engine, TCP execution engine is the side that's being used inside the unit test project. And really, from a send perspective, all that it does is send response messages. But it needs to handle find, run, cancel, and quit. Those are the commands you can send to it. So at the moment, find, I mentioned it'll take operation ID, but we don't have any specification stuff done. That's coming. But I just want to get it sort of working. And so when you send a find to this, it will actually go ahead and run find, which will fire up the test framework and then go get the discoverer and do a find for you. And we use this Where is the, yeah, this engine discovery sync, which is down here in the bottom of this file. All it basically does is every time it sees a test case discovered, it sends that over to the other side, sends the response back to the other side after it runs the filter. So we'll talk about the filter stuff here in a sec. Um, and then if it's discovery complete, then we know we're done. If we want to send the message, then we just go ahead and send it. So by default, we send all the messages through that we see. It's just that when test cases are discovered, we want to filter them based on the things that they've asked us to filter for. So what that all means is now I pop these both open and I put this here. You can see it's connected to 8087. We've got a connected message over here, and now it's listening for commands. So if I just type quit, then everybody's done. We get disconnected, everybody's finished. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll run the server again, and then we'll run this again. And now let's do find. So I need an operation ID. This is something that is just, it's, an ID that the runner will invent. So we'll just send 1. That's fine. And then what we see here is find started for operation ID 1, find finished for operation ID 1. And then you see a bunch of these messages, message 1. And so 1 is the operation ID. So it's correlating the result message here with what you the operation ID that you requested. So that's how you know this message is in response to that find 1. All right, so if I were to, let's pop up a notepad and drop that in there, we'll see that this is discovery complete for this assembly unique ID, right? So each one of these is either a test case discovered or probably a discovery started up at the top. See if we can get all the way up to the top here. All right, so there's discovery starting. So this is the description of everything that we're doing. So maybe I should have left Notepad open. My bad. Let me throw some word wrap on here. So this is our discovery starting message. We're discovering for XUnit v3 tests. All right, this is our assembly name. That looks wrong. That's interesting. That should have been the short name. I'll have to figure out why that is. Assembly name in discovery starting should be the short name, not the qualified name. I'll figure out why that was. This is where the assembly is on disk, and then we invented a unique ID for it. If we were doing discovery for multiple test assemblies, then each one of them will have its own unique ID. And that's, again, a way that we can correlate messages. So here's a test case discovered. Let me grab that. All right, so we'll copy that and we'll put that in here. And you'll see what's the assembly unique ID is the way we'll do the correlation. So every message that has this assembly a unique ID in it is obviously for XUnit v3 assert tests. And then we give you information about the test case we just found. Hey, this is fail assert tests guard clause. This is a test case, so it has a unique ID. It has a unique ID for its class, a unique ID for its collection, and a unique ID for its test method. It had no traits on it. So there you go. That's an example of how this works. So the filtering side, let's come over here and we'll do quit so that everybody goes away. So the filtering side, if I were to run my command here and let's do help, there is, for example, filtering here related to classes, methods, namespaces, and traits. So if I were to take that class, fail assert tests, let's just get the fail assert tests this time. All right, so let's do that. Oh, server's not running, so it's going to yell at me. That's fine. Go ahead. Let's do that again, and then we'll do a find. This time we only found the fail assert tests. It looks like there were 2 of them. All right, so if I came in here and I look for fail assert tests, all right, there's 2 of them. So there you go. So that's the filtering function that we saw earlier is what's doing that. The filter is set up right now based on that command line, but as I wrote in the documentation for the engine messages, I think rather than counting on the command line filtering, what I want to do is have a generalized specification for things to find here so that I could, as a runner author, I don't have to launch you with a filter. I can basically just launch you in TCP mode, figure out the filter myself, maybe dynamically, maybe the user will interactively want to filter things. And I could just issue those find commands over there with a new filter to find out what the test cases are for the filter that you asked for. Right. So that's what that specification is intended to do. It's intended to replace these sort of very simplistic class, no class, namespace, no namespace filters that are on the command line today. So obviously I can also run tests. So we haven't talked about running tests yet over here. The engine is still running, so I could just go ahead and I could say run, and now we'll say 2. This is our second operation ID, right? So it will run all those tests. We have a lot more than 2 messages here. That's just kind of the way XUnit works. There's a pretty extensive list of things that happens when a test is run. We send messages for a lot of this. So we have test assembly starting. So we're starting the assembly. We're starting the test collection that it belongs to. We're starting the test class that it belongs to. We're starting the test method that it belongs to. We're starting the test case, and we're starting the test inside that test case. And then in order to run that test, we need to construct an instance of the test class. So we start and finish that. We run the test and give back the results. So here's our test passed. And then we have test finished to tell you that we're done. That finishes that test case, and then we move on to that finishes that test method, right? Because there's only one test case for the test method. Now we will go to the next test method, because remember we had 2 of them. So that will turn into a test case, that will turn into a test, that will turn into a test class being constructed. So yes, we are newing up instances of your test class, 1 per test. That's the way it's always been for us, unless you have static test methods. Obviously, we don't new up an instance of your class if you're a static test method. That test also passed, and then that test finished. So we don't see anything over here, which is fine because you have to remember the way the architecture of this is going to be is that, you would normally, the way we would normally run this is, let me quit out of this and show you what the intended usage is. You would not run this directly like this. Instead, what you do is you would say source XUnit v3 runner console bin net 472. You'd want to run XUnit v3 runner console. Okay. So the command lines to this look very much like the command lines to our built-in tests, although obviously nothing is running here because this is a runner that is asking for an assembly to be passed to it. So what test assembly do you want to run? So in our case, the test assembly we want to run is actually this XE, right? So if I go ahead and pass that, what we get today is an error that says, hey, I don't know how to run this because I only know how to run V1 and V2 tests. It doesn't look like a V1 or V2 test, which is true. It is not a V1 or a V2 test. We have not integrated in V3 support yet, but that's the other half of this, right? So this runner engine, which is also currently being worked on, the first thing we looked at. This is going to be used by the console runner. So today, if I go and look and see who's newing up instances of the runner engine, I don't see any. Actually, that's a little bit surprising. I thought, oh, I know, right? Right, I haven't wired this up yet. So where this will live is, do we have XUnit 3? So this XUnit 3 class, which I have commented out, this is where we're going to start to wire that runner engine up here. In fact, you see it's commented out. That's why I was kind of surprised I didn't see a reference. It's just because I have commented out. And if we go look at that message that we just saw comes from what's called the XUnit front controller. The XUnit front controller's responsibility is to basically figure out whether you have an XUnit v1, v2, v3 test, and then delegate off to the right class. So in this case, we look for, does it look like it has an XUnit execution DLL in it? If it does, then run it with the XUnit2 class. If it's got XUnit DLL sitting there, then run it with the XUnit1 class, which knows how to run XUnit1 tests. So what we're missing here is essentially, I think what I want to do is we're going to put this here. So XUnit1 really only supports .NET Framework. So we're going to put XUnit v3 logic up here, right? Unknown test framework. Could not find XUnit DLL v1 or XUnit execution v2. I think we're going to have different messages. So let's go ahead and put the different messages up here. So if you're on .NET Framework 1, v1, v2, could not find XUnit execution for v2. But then we'll also do v3. So today, if I were to try and run this with .NET Core, which I don't have a .NET Core version of this, but if I were to run the console runner as .NET Core, I should be able to run a v2 or a v3 project. So the XUnit 3 logic up here assumes that this XUnit 3 class exists as an implementation of iFront controller, so that it can create one of these and use it. At the moment, let's just go ahead and comment this stuff out. And then we'll do not impls, not impls, not impls across the board. That's fine. You're upset because TCP server hasn't been initialized. That's fine. Will you be good to go? XUnit 3, current message sync, doesn't have a user. That's fine too. And then we have current message sync. So we'll comment that out for the moment. Oh, that's interesting. Enumerable string does not contain definition for any and no method of any. Okay, so we need system link all the time now, which is fine. Okay. So you're okay. And now what I want to do is I want to put the v3 logic here, which is, let's go put the assembly folder up there. And then we're going to say, if we find a v3 core DLL, then we're going to return XUnit 3. And you need a diagnostic message sync, source information provider, assembly file name, config file name. That's all you need at the moment. So what's different here? No app domains, no shadow copies, no shadow copies. We obviously got rid of app domains in v3. So that should now compile. So now what'll happen when I run this command is I'll get I assume what I'll get is a non-implemented exception from inside my XUnit 3 class saying, hey, yeah, you didn't do what I expected you to do. You're supposed to go run these things. And we should be able to say XUnit v3 assert tests DLL on the netcore side and get the same thing, right? Because if I go look in that folder, all right, XUnit v3 core, is sitting there. So that's how we know that that's us, right? Okay. So that's the only logic that needs to change here. We need to start now wiring this up with our TCP server. All right, so let's see. So our TCP server, we've changed the args for this. We need an engine ID. We need a message sync and a diagnostic message sync. So we need an engine ID and a message sync. So the message sync is that's us. So we need is an engine ID, um, engine ID TBD. These are basically used in the diagnostic messages for us. All right, so there's our disposal tracker. We will start the engine and v3 TCP server running on this port, and then we need to launch the unit test assembly. This current message sync, I don't exactly know what I was thinking there. I guess we'll have to find out exactly what's going on there. So we don't know how to do find and we don't know how to do run because we haven't implemented any of that stuff. Um, but we are going to need to do cancellation tracking. What's interesting about this is like we know that these messages are going to come back in response to a specific request for cancellation, specific request for find or run. Sorry. So we might need to be a little bit smarter than this. So I guess we'll find out. At the moment, we don't know how to launch the test assembly. And when I say that, what I mean is these are both legal. Here I'm asking the .NET Framework console runner to run a .NET Framework project, and here I'm asking the .NET Framework console runner to run a .NET Core project. So I know how to launch this, right? I mean, I just launch it with TCP. I already know that, and it'll fail because there's no server. But this is not an executable, right? This needs to be .NET Run. So if I were to just do like a .NET exec on that and pass TCP 8087, there you go. That's pretty much the same thing. That's kind of what I expected. But we need to know the difference between a .NET Core unit test and a .NET Framework unit test. So one of the other things that I was doing was I had set up the ability to get the test framework inside the XUnit project. So if I go and I look at XUnit project assembly, all right, this is information that's used by runners to say this is an assembly that I intend to run. And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to capture the target framework that that assembly belongs to. And these come out as strings that look kind of like .NET framework, comma version equals v472, right? This is exactly what was this thing linked against? And actually you can see that if I run ILSpy. Perfect, I'll just come look at one of these. There's an assembly level attribute that's automatically tagged in here, which is the target framework assembly. This might not have one. I'm surprised it doesn't. Let's try system XML. It's interesting. None of these have target framework attributes on them. I'm surprised. Let's kill ILSpy and launch it from the command line instead. If I ILSpy this, what I should see is, here we go, target framework. So here's an example, .NET Core App version 2.1. And if I ILSpy my executable version, right, is the same thing as .NET Framework version v4.7.2. So I need to go look at these things and say, hey, I know how to do .NET Framework. I just launch it directly. I know how to do .NET Core App. I launch it with .NET. There's obviously needs to be some extra logic in here about launching this process with Mono when you're not running on Windows. So that's kind of I sort of have to figure that bit of it out yet. Let's see. So if I were to come look at this, I would say, so who uses front controller? So now if we go look at our console runner, there should be references to the front controller from, here's our v3 console runner. All right, here's where we knew up the front controller. And how do we get that information? That we're going to run this stuff with. This is our XUnit project assembly. That's that class we were just talking about. So front controller is going to need to know what the target framework for this stuff is in order to know how to launch it. So should we pass in target framework stuff? Should front controller take an XUnit project assembly? Maybe it should just take an XUnit project assembly. This is defined in, I think, runner common, right? And front controllers in runner utility, which references runner common. Today, it takes things like assembly file name, config file name, shadow copy folder, app domain support. All of those things actually sort of exist in here already, right? So here's our assembly, which has the file name and the config name, target framework, which we really want, and then the test assembly configuration, which has app domain options, and it has, should have down here, shadow copy options, right? So maybe what I'm missing here would be a shadow copy folder in order to sort of complete the picture. Yeah, so maybe that's what I want to do is I want to start rewriting front controller to take an XUnit project assembly instead of all of these things. What's interesting is today, XUnit front controller allows you to pass a shadow copy folder, but to the best of my knowledge, like here you can see we don't. To the best of my knowledge, nobody ever passes that. So in theory, you could write a runner that allows you to pass it. Here's the MS build runner, doesn't have a shadow copy folder here either, right? And then the last one should be assembly runner, which is our simplified thing, which allows you to pass a shadow copy folder in here. Assembly runner itself, I mean, all 5 of these things we've already seen from front controller. All 5 of these things can come from an XUnit test, an XUnit project assembly. Do we want them to make an XUnit project assembly for assembly runner? I don't know. Assembly runner maybe needs some rework in the face of everything else. But I think like at least taking a version of XUnit front controller, like at least having a constructor that takes project assembly would be the useful one, and we could deprecate this one and come back and figure out assembly runner later. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. All right, I need a couple of minute break. So I'm gonna, I think what I'm gonna do, no, let's leave that up. Let's leave that over there. I am kind of curious. Let me pull dev over here on the Linux side. And let me run those tests here and see if I can recreate that failure. Well, let me minimize the rest. So while I'm taking my break, um, I'll do that. I'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay, well, I don't know if I should think that's a good thing or a bad thing that I don't seem to be able to reproduce the issue that's on main. Hmm. Probably means it's timing related. Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that then. Wait a minute. What if it's threading related? My CI builds run things with a single thread. That could be the problem. We've also got serialization issues. Oh, this ordering thing. I don't understand how this ordering thing happens. Like that collection is sorted. How can its sort order differ? And only sometimes. I have to fix the rest of this non-serializable data. Ran all the tests on Mono, and it's going to create all the NuGet packages. Yeah, it's got to be, somehow has to be timing related. Can't think of anything else that could be causing it. Well, that's not going to be fun. But I kind of knew that those tests were difficult to begin with. Okay, you can go away, Notepad. And terminal window, you can go away. So I kind of think I want to bring in project assembly for the front controller. So let's copy this signature. With an empty summary and an obsolete. Which is going to be everybody. So shadow copy folder is missing from there, but we'll go add it. So we'll go into the config. That's really where it belongs. Shadow copy folder, shadow copy folder or defaults. Uh-huh. So we don't need a default for that. That's fine. Come back to the front controller. Probably be able to get rid of all of these things. But for now, let's hold the values like this. So here we make an assumption that assembly file name has to exist, but here we don't. That's kind of an interesting one. We'll have to figure out that one. I know it's got a little N, it should have a big N, but fortunately that's a typo that exists back into the past. And obviously none of these need this. Assembly file name should not be required for the front controller. Should just be able to run it with an assembly. Guess we'll find out what we break when that's true. Can't guard that. So if we're given an assembly, oh, what else is red because of the lack of assembly file name? These all require assembly file name. Guess what we'll do then is we'll say we'll have to do that later. Let's just get the not null or empty here. Yeah, it needs to be valid because I want to specify the message. Arg name message, so name of assembly file name cannot be null with past to we'll put some name ofs in here. Arg name and then message and then test. Can I convert void to a string? Okay. It's fine. We also have the guard file exists, which we might as well just move up here. And then we our arg name here. I guess it's technically that. Actually, given that I'm going to do that, I can do the same thing up here, right? Then I don't need this. Move our file exists back down here. This can go here. So this already does an argument not null or empty, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Probably also a missing guard here too, which is what's interesting about this is this could return that could just return that, right? Now this can go up here. Target framework, which we also need right now, returns an unknown target framework value. Which I assume is public. Okay. Specs unit 3, instead of taking assembly file name and config file name, could just take the project. That would mean I need to store the project. Kind of feel like I should store the project. Intercontroller target framework. So the intercontroller would be XUnit 3. Target framework, not impl, test assembly, unique ID, not impl, test framework, display name, not impl. What am I doing in the other ones? In Discover. Remote Discover, target framework. Except XUnit v2 doesn't have that. How are we expecting that to work? Or does it? It does. Did not realize that was there. Interesting. So if we take in the project here, that's how we'll get our target framework. This stuff is going to be a little bit harder to create. Interesting to see where we need it too. So normally I go and ask the remote side for this, but I don't have a remote side to ask these questions of yet. But that's not entirely true, is it? I could just add a command to our engine that would return things like test assembly unique ID and the test framework display name. Okay. Send to query information about test framework and test assembly in question. Then execution also send an info message back. So I can send info back. And we can go throw a TCP engine info class in here. the data for the response. Save the data. Data for the message. Oh my God, I was reading this going, that just seems wrong. This is the operation ID followed by separator followed by the JSON encoded message data. Data for the response is JSON encoded message data. Typically, apparently I don't need that in there. JSON encoded message data typically generated from TCP engine. Oops. TCP engine info. So your XUnit v3, right? Actually, why are you v3? Why are these messages in v3? You should be in runner common. Weird, weird oversight. Okay, so you should be runner common and you should be public. Information about the execution engine. JSON encoded form when sending a TCP, let's see, and messages, execution info response. So you don't know what TCP engine is, execution engine is. That's because you're in XUnit v3 somewhere else. So you can't be directly referenced. That's okay. Execution engine being in v3 is fine because it's in the unproc console at the moment. And the runner engine, we should make sure is in runner common. Are they all in v3 because they only apply to v3? Maybe they should be in v3. Maybe I'm wrong about this. You know what? I'm wrong about this. It's fine. Prior Brad was correct. Current Brad is wrong. So we know we at least need to send back you know, I need the test framework display name. Actually, we're going to do this with our patented getter setter nonsense. After to get test framework display name of you. And then we need another one of these for the Test assembly unique ID. You and you and you and you and you. Interesting is it's I think I get both of these from the discoverer. So in order to be able to send this message back, I'm going to need to know, I'm going to need to at least fire up the discoverer just to get them, which is probably fine. So let's go to our execution engine. Let's add a new handler for info. On info. We'll steal on cancel. That's fine. It's close enough. On info. Info data. No, actually, info has nothing. I don't care about any of that. What I need is just send the response back. So we send messages that come from message sync message with an operation ID. Operation ID can be optional. And then we just need to make sure this TCP engine info derives from a message sync message, which itself has nothing in it but serialization stuff, which generally just serializes properties that have getters and setters. Okay. So if I'm going to do that, then what I need is I need some of the logic from find. Namely, I need, actually, I don't know why I have execution options there. Never needed that. Basically need this. This is going to be shareable from elsewhere. Interesting idea that these things could be async. Nobody's going to wait for it, but that's okay. New TCP engine info. Assembly unique ID is test discovered. Test assembly unique ID. Test framework display names. Test discovered. Test framework display name. Right. And then we're going to do a send message. For this. We don't need the discovery options either. We need this assembly info. We do because of this. I feel like that comes up a lot. Means I don't need you anymore. And I don't need you anymore. Kind of wonder if the test framework should just be hanging around all the time. I do kind of feel like it should be, and the disposal tracker should be out there. Do I already have a disposal tracker? That's really surprising. Okay. So I don't need to do that. I'm going to do the test framework, which is an iTest framework. I'll leave you hanging around. And disposal tracker will just be newed up. And then we should be able to do this await disposal tracker dot dispose async. Although if the only thing we're ever going to put in that disposal tracker is this, then maybe I don't want it. Yeah, maybe I don't want it. I just want the test framework. I'm going to put you up there. Oh, it's in the disposal tracker because we don't know if it's disposable. It's fine. And I'm okay with moving it up here though. That makes more sense. So we need to dispose the buffered client and then shut down the socket and then dispose everything else. You don't need to be async anymore because you have nothing that is awaited. Neither do you. Also means that you don't need any of this. And you're not async anymore either. Okay. So the only thing that's broken right now is Assembly runner and runner utility. And we'll just go ahead and suppress that for the moment. So then the MS build runner is broken, and then the console runner is broken. That's okay. Because what I really want to see now is I run this, come over here and run, whoops, wrong one, run one of my TCP friends. Let's go ahead and run that one. So you're connected now. Hmm. I have no way of seeing that, do I? Nobody's over there listening for it. Kernel diagnostics. Yeah, why didn't this message make it over here? Hmm. That's very odd, right? Oh, you know why? I can tell you why. Because I was being dumb. So for starter, this notion that I'm going to send this message that way is wrong. It's just wrong. It's fine though. Let me fix my dumbness. You're not optional. I know you're not optional. I knew that all along. You're not a message sync message. You're fine. So what does send message do? You just queue up stuff in the buffered client, right? Right. So you are info with a separator with a JSON serialized version of this message. JSON serializer, serialize the result. That's not bytes. And that's okay because we have a version that takes a string, right? We'll do the encoding already. Good. Hmm. Okay, build everybody. See what's going on here. Info. There you go. Test assembly, unique ID, test framework display name. Should anything else be put into that info message? I mean, it's JSON, so in theory, we could always extend it without breaking anything. We just can't change stuff. I mean, I could send back target framework, although I need to know target framework long before I can actually get it to send it back, but I am kind of curious. But I'm pretty sure it's just doing the exact same thing I'm already doing, which is pulling the target framework out of somewhere else. So, okay. I'm all right with that. So basically what that means is now on the runner side, what I need to do is I need to do send info. And I need to be able to process the information that comes back. So basically I just need that, is that. You do need this guard. These should be name obs, I guess. What else can be name of? This can be name of. Apparently did not get a. This is wrong. MSG data is missing the operation ID. So this could be, actually that, not so easy. So we need a handler here for on info, right? Info message is missing the JSON. Okay. Here's the serializer. Deserialize TCP engine info or data value, which is now bytes. I don't think it will deserialize bytes, will it? That is not the key I wanted. Oh, it'll do a read-only span of bytes. Do a read-only span of bytes. Okay. Just call you info. You deserialize TCP engine info. What are we going to do with that when we're done? This could just hang on to it, I guess. This question is, should I just immediately send the info request when we get started? Right, I mean, we have start. Should this immediately basically two different ways to think about how to design this, right? One is we leave send info, but then the other is you don't leave send info or you don't let it be public. Instead, you just call it here on the assumption that you just want to go get info from the thing. Um, okay, we have our to-do node here. The moment we don't really have anything else other than that. We know we need this stuff. So if I go to X unit 3 now, given that this is here, the runner engine is here. Shouldn't be called TCP, it should be called the runner engine. Means you should get moved up. Start. And then we say send info. No, can't do that until we've launched. Because of course the runner engine hasn't actually been connected to anything yet till this happens. So basically we need to know when connection has happened Do we need a connection event? Like when all this stuff happens? That's what it's really coming down to. It's kind of like I feel like there's a first step that needs to happen. Like this info request is going to be more than just an asynchronous request for info. It's going to be like, yeah, in order to be a legitimate connection, I just need you to send me something. And if that's the case, maybe I don't even need to send an info request. Well, I think I want to send an info request or whatever we would call it if we're going to do it as a protocol negotiation. Right? It's kind of like how you say when you connect to an HTTP server, you make a request, and one of the things that's part of that request is what HTTP version does this request match? Well, for us, that negotiation would be an upfront negotiation which says, what protocol do you want to speak? The interesting thing about a protocol version that I'm not 100% sure on is like from a forward compatibility perspective, I really want to get the protocol right. Like the fallback stuff is a little strange because the runner shouldn't care. And I wonder if I'm going to build in this whole protocol negotiation thing and then just never even need it. Because we only ever have one version of the protocol. Hmm. Yeah, see, now I'm not quite sure. I do want to kind of give this some thought. Like, I'm not sure that I have this figured out exactly in my head, but we definitely need this back and forth of some kind. Whether it's a unilateral information, which upon connection, the execution engine just basically says, here's information about me, go. Um, or it's a question of, um, do we need to have when the runner engine connects, maybe what I do is the runner engine just sends the protocol, like part of what the information messages that comes back from the runner engine is, or sorry, from the execution engine is, hey, this is the things that I know how to do. This protocol version. And then the runner engine will be responsible for not sending any requests that aren't understandable given the protocol version. And then we'll just have to work to make sure that we don't make any changes in protocol version that would break any kind of back compat. Like we can't change the format of a message. We could just introduce a new message instead. So like if for some reason we wanted to do, like we broke find, we want to have a v2 of find, we'll call it find2. And it's just like, just like the interfaces in COM. iFoobar, iFoobar2, iFoobar3, iFoobar3EX. Yeah, we would just invent new message types. We just know what version of the protocol it is. Yeah, I'm feeling like that's probably the right answer, but I do want to give it some more thought. I think so. What that means is I think I'm probably done for the moment. Uh, and I'm going to background thread this for a bit. I mean, I've been at this, a little bit more than 2 hours now, so it's a good time for a brain break anyway. And it's 5:30 p.m., 17:30 here in Seattle. Um, Given my weird sleep schedule, that means it's time for lunch or dinner or whatever. I stayed up till 6 a.m. yesterday, last night. I was playing a new Path of Exile league, and so you know probably not a bad idea to try and get my sleep schedule back to normal, I guess. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out. Let me know on Twitter or whatever whether the background music thing worked out okay. I'm gonna go check the VOD after this is all over and make sure that the background music did show up on the VOD because that's how it's supposed to work. But my first stream with it, so it'll look a little weird that I decided to put the little image, I guess, over there of the currently playing music. It'd be a little odd for the people who watch the VOD who won't be able to hear the music. I thought about putting the song name on the screen somewhere while I was coding, but I just figured that would be distracting. And if people really care what a song is while it's playing, they can just ask. All right. I guess I'll see you all later. Maybe later tonight. I might stream some Death Stranding or some Path of Exile. We'll see how I'm feeling. Anyway, thanks for hanging out today. See you.